with the Starting Block crew. I'm joined by my good friends and colleagues, Jacob and Aimee and Jesse and Daniel and Liz. And, I was thinking about that this morning as I was walking my dog. I was like, man, what a pleasure it is to like build stuff with friends, we've been working together, for a while now, and it's always fun. Like with us, like it's like coming up with new ideas and finding new ways to execute on things. Like it's always fun, even in the midst of like not knowing what we're doing all the time and like having a hard time, like, launching an e-com brand, basically. It's still so much fun when you do it with like fun and smart people. So anyway, I just want to like give a nod to my colleagues. It's so cool to get to work with you guys. So we're going to do a couple of things today. The title of this podcast is Don't Get Ready, Get Started. And which a lot of the people on here know came from one of our mentors, a guy named Perry Claybon. When I was trying to give him some excuse to not get started, he's like, "Hey man, are you building the thing yet?" And I was like, "Nah, man, I'm thinking about it." And he kind of, put me to work real fast. And so we have a couple of fun stories about that. Jacob's going to share a story. Aimee's going to share a story about getting started. Then we'll take just a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about this course that we have, which is on sale for 50% off right now. And then we want to do some Q&A, or maybe even like hear little bits and pieces of your own personal stories. So hopefully this feels more like a dialogue and less like us talking at you, which is maybe not so interesting. So I want to kick it off. I want to hand it over to my friend, colleague, Aimee, who's going to share her story of getting started.
Hey, dudes. So thinking about what I was going to share today, I think I actually spend a decent amount of time getting ready. And I thought about kind of the last big jump I made. So I've been with Love and Science now, started that 13 years ago. And the story of like getting that off the ground is, I didn't really see myself as an entrepreneur. I really wanted to just build stuff. And that like building stuff, it was really powered by just a desire to solve problems. I really wanted to capitalize on opportunities, get rid of obstacles. And I was in this agency, and it was a good agency with good people. It was like a great place to work. I had fun, cool projects. But I just kept bumping up against friction. I would want to do things differently. I would see like opportunities. I would see issues. I would see how we could improve. And it just felt like there was no path for me to do that. But I wasn't sitting back on my heels. I just kept pushing, and friction just kept increasing. And it was starting to get like pretty hard to work there. As the friction increased, I started just doing the basic math and being like, okay, well, they're billing $26, or I'm getting $26 an hour. They're billing $165 an hour. Like, there's not a ton of, there's a lot of margin there. I could be doing this work, like fewer clients, fewer projects, less time, and still be able to make up that money. So that's in the back of my head. Fast forward a little bit, the agency ends up hiring this outside consultant to come in and assess the company. And this guy, he interviews everybody. He gives everybody personality tests. I'm thinking, okay, I'm on my way out. Like once they figure out what my personality is, actually, I'm out of here. But he ends up telling them, give that girl a department. She can take you guys, like she can keep you moving, keep you going forward. And there was all this discussion. I was in all these like kind of uncomfortable meetings with supervisors and stuff. And eventually they tell me, hey, we've decided you could take 10% of your time to like pursue these things, this optimization desire that you have. And by that time, it was just over for me. And I thought, I'm going to use 100% of my time, like no 10%. I'm going all in. Like I am going to do what I want to do 100% of the time. And it really, like, it was rocky. When I first kicked things off, I experienced issues I had no idea were coming. But at the same time, I've never looked back. And those first few contracts that I got, the agency that I left was one of my very first contracts. people that I had engaged with in my business, in just as I was working at this job, were first contracts. And I went back and did the math yesterday, and those three contracts equated to double what I was making. Just those three contracts in the first like week or something of like launching the thing. Yeah, so I mean that's pretty much the story. A little bit of analysis for me. Um, the big thing is that I want to analyze like to get an answer to something or to find like what I'm going to experiment on. It's easy if you just spend a lot of time thinking about it to stall. But I took in the data, a small amount of data that I needed to make a decision to clarify something, and I moved from there.
Aimee, I love that. There's a couple things I'd love to like just kind of like I don't know double down on or follow up on. One is this like I think everybody on this call, everybody in the world has run into that friction at their organizations, and we all have that same kind of idea. It's like, man, I could do this better than these guys, right? Like there's always that idea, but rarely do people actually jump off and go try it, right? Some people decide to stick around and try to make it better. But we all encounter that friction. It's like, so there's like that, there's that one decision point, which way am I going to go? That's where the path split. The other thing that I appreciate that you said is this idea of like having one piece of like objective or outside validation about your capability, and it like how important that can be, how important it can be for us to receive it, but also like how important it can be for us to give it to other people. A lot of times in my job as a coach, like I end up telling people, I'm like, oh my God, you're so smart, or you're so creative, or you're so like capable. And people are like, really? And I'm like, yeah, dude. And so, sometimes we don't always have that mirror in front of us. And so to have somebody come our way and give us that little piece of objective validation that, yes, you're smart, you're creative, you can totally like do good stuff. Like that's all it takes to really launch us. And so, yeah, I just really love that. The last thing I would love to say is that like in the means of like don't get ready to get started was this idea of like I had just enough data. It was just enough. It wasn't like a mountain of data. I didn't stop and research for 6 months about like what I was going to do. I had just enough analysis and data, and I was ready to move on. So yeah, that was great. Jacob, what's up?
Aimee, yesterday when we were kind of running through some of this, you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting about the way you evaluated the risk, like the risk of being employed versus the risk of that. Just want to hear you say it again because it was awesome.
Yeah. So for me, a little about of that analysis, like short bursts of analysis, was just about de-risking or like evaluating the risk. And when I thought about it, in my opinion, like, so people will tell me all the time, like, oh, I can't believe you had a business for 13 years. It's a big deal, whatever. So hard to keep a business running. And I think like it's way easier for me to keep this business running than to keep a job. Like somebody could literally fire me tomorrow and I have to start over. Or I've built this thing that like I can kind of point at stuff, I can figure things out. So to me, it seems less risky to have myriad clients and like people who I'm engaged with at this level than it feels like to have a job that I could just get fired from. And then the other thing that I talked about yesterday with the team was just like, just that like that cascade effect of like, what's the worst that could happen? And just looking at it, taking a minute to look at it and see what that is, and either say, well, that's not so bad, or well, here's how I'd handle it. And it just kind of gives you a step. And like in fairness, like a thing happened to me when I launched that business that never showed up on my cascade of like what's the worst that could happen. There are always surprises, but there's a lot that you can do to just, I guess, mentally prepare and like de-risk is almost more like what's in your head than what's actually on paper. And I personally just really believe that you can find more potential, like your potential can be realized more easily outside of someone else's system. And I think when you're outside of someone else's system, it gives you some flexibility to pivot and follow the opportunities, fix the problems. For me at least, it's the external system that like I can't I can't judge. I can't always fully judge that, and I certainly can't control it.
Yeah, I had an old boss, guy named Robbie Reimer, when I was in the healthcare world, that always said that to me. He was like, "Look, man, sometimes you got to go work down the street for us to realize how good you were here." And that's certainly been true in my life. The other thing, and I'll steal Jacob Jones's line real quick. The other thing that I don't know why I always call you by your first and your last name. I've been doing it for like 15 years. Anyway, the other thing that I love that Jacob always says is like one of the riskiest things that you can do is never go try your dream. Like never go try the thing that you've been thinking about for a long time and then be, 98 laying in bed about to die and think, shit, I kind of blew it. So that's probably one of the biggest risks that we can take. So all right. If you have questions or comments for Aimee's, hold on to them, drop them in the chat. Just wait a minute and we'll come back. But I want to make sure that we get a little time for JJ to share his story, and then we'll do a little Q&A and open it up a little bit after that. JJ?
Yeah, I wanted to share, I've been thinking about this, kind of my entryway into entrepreneurship. It's a little bit about getting unstuck and getting started and kind of my own version. So I moved to Nashville in 2007. I was in my early 20s and I was a musician. Me and a buddy were roommates and we were both putting out albums. And so we had this idea of starting a record label. We just wanted to control our own stuff, have a common flag to fly, and ideally grow the record label as a business and sign other acts and everything. We just moved to Nashville after all. It just seemed like a great thing to do. So we get going and we get the brand together, we get a website, he's a great designer, we get all the elements. And we're off and running. We both have albums. We put them out. And we kind of immediately come up against a wall of we don't know booking agents or radio promoters or distribution, or we don't have any money. So it was really hard. It was fun, but we weren't really getting anywhere. We were both playing shows and doing our thing, but we really wanted this label to be our common thing. And we're just like, after a year or so or 6 months, it was just kind of stuck in a way that like didn't matter that much because we both worked at restaurants and we were both kind of screwing around, but it just didn't really work. And we kind of realized, all right, if we're going to make this work, we're going to have to, maybe get some help or figure out how this industry works more than just fake it till you make it kind of approach. In the meantime, he and I had started a party that has nothing to do with this business, but it was still him and I. And this party was on Monday nights in Nashville. And we both have a big love for old soul music. So like 60s Motown, Stax, Chess. And so we launched this party at a venue down the street. And, first night, 10 people are there. Next week, 20 people are there. Then 50 people. And we're like 6-8 weeks into this party and there's hundreds of people at this thing every Monday night. We still don't make the connection that like, maybe this is what we should be doing. We're still trying to build this record label, which was called Electric Western Records. So fast forward a couple months, this party is just outrageous. And it's it was free, by the way. And we were just doing it for the fun of it and make some tips. The party gets so crowded that we decide to start charging $3 at the door just to piss people off so that some people won't come in and it will clear room on the dance floor. Because people were getting upset and saying, yeah, I can't even move in here. And so we charged $3. And then all of a sudden there was like eureka, like, oh my God, I just made more money tonight than I do bartending down the street. And I had been really looking for a way out of the bar industry because I've seen what that can do to you after a while. And I didn't want to do it for the next 20 years. So then I immediately got the idea of like, let's charge $5, because if you look in this room and you're not willing to pay $5, if you're willing to pay $3, then that's on you because you can see this is a really good time. So all of a sudden we charge $5, nobody cares. And then we just have a conversation one day. We're like, instead of Electric Western Records, let's make it Electric Western Productions. And we just became promoters. We still had our music, but we had already started this thing without knowing it. And we had struck a nerve at this zeitgeist at this right time and place. And we just weren't paying attention to it. The second we started paying attention to it and feeding it the same amount of creativity and energy that we had been feeding the label side, it just exploded. We did that party for 13 years, every Monday night. Somewhere between 400 and 800 people came every Monday. We ended up doing festivals, Bonnaroo, traveling. We finally shut it down when COVID hit. The building was hit by a tornado, and then a week later, COVID hit. So that the double whammy. We were like, I think we're good. We aged out. But we looked back on that, and we had put hundreds of thousands of people through that door, and we had DJ dozens of weddings of people who met at the party, and like all these crazy things happened from it. And then I ended up launching a marketing agency based on the reputation of that party. And it led all these different pathways, which led me to media production, which is how I met Parker, and then eventually led me into real estate, which is what I do now. And he's had similar experiences, and we're still super close friends. And I just want to tell a story to illustrate that sometimes the thing that gets you unstuck is right in front of you, and you may have already started it, even if you don't realize it.
Dude, I'm always such a big fan of that story. I've heard it several times, and it's still like I'm still like tuned in, like I don't know what's going to happen or something like that. It's just like it's a fun, positive story, and I'm just like catching a couple things here in the chat. Like Emily said, yeah, watch out for that unexpected prototype, and it's so true. We talk about like stumbling into things accidentally, the accidental prototype, right? Which happens all the time. And there's so many cases where sometimes we'll just tell people, like, even if you don't know what to build yet, go to the prototyping table and just start looking at materials and start to build and like watch what happens. It's like there's something like, even if you can't consciously think, like your subconscious is like jamming on something and your hands are doing another thing, and then just magic starts to happen in a really beautiful way. I think that there's this myth that a lot of us suffer from, right? This idea that like, oh, I have to have a really clear vision of exactly what's going to happen, and then I'm going to go build it, and then it's going to be successful. I certainly had this. A couple of the guys that are on this call were here this night, but I had this idea of like, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write a book. And somebody asked me, oh man, what are you going to write a book about? And like, and I was like, oh, well, I mean, I'm not really sure. I'm kind of like thinking about it. And then as soon as I get it all like figured out in my head, I'll sit down and like, put it on paper. And he just started laughing at me. And he was like, no, dude, that's not how it works. You need to go get to work right now. The first draft is going to suck. It's going to be awful. But you need to go get it done right now. That's your start. And sure as shit, that's exactly what I did. And he was absolutely right. So, anyway, so I love this idea of like getting started, doing the, like, kind of like following the energy, following the flow into doing something you like. And then you have no idea how it's going to turn out. But the fact that it was like something that you loved and it was with a good friend, like, like it's hard to lose with that, like it's hard to go bad with that. Kind of feels like you and I getting started with Starting Block, actually. Same kind of thing. All right. So here's what I'd love to do. We have just like 10 minutes left. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Starting Block here in a second, and this like cool cohort that we're offering, this like free cohort that we're doing for new startups, new entrepreneurs, or early stage entrepreneurs. But I'm curious, does anybody have questions or comments or like similar experiences with Aimee and Jacob that they'd be willing to share or talk a little bit about? I know a lot of you do, because I know most of you. So I'm curious if anybody has anything that they'd love to share or to ask.
You have to be prepared, obviously, and math is math, but you can always go back. It's like, I don't know, when you do that, what's the worst that could happen thing? I mean, okay, worst that could happen, I can't pay my rent, or I can't. I mean, that's not great, but like, if you can always try and then go back to the job market. I mean, that's my opinion, I guess. It's not, no decision is so final that you've abandoned all the other options. But if you don't ever try, and you're one of those people that has that kind of voice in your head that you want to try, then you've eliminated that option permanently. Whereas if you just try it once, you still have all the other options on the table.
Yeah, I just want to take this opportunity to say that the number of failed business opportunities, or like failed businesses that I've tried, outweighs the number of successful businesses I've tried. I just want to be really clear about that. There's 5 or 6 things that did not go well, but the things that did go well went well enough to get me through all of the little tiny fails. Like, they were inconvenient more than they were like a failure, I think is the thing that I would say.
I have a rich friend who I periodically ask, "Hey man, if everything really went south, would you pay my mortgage for a couple of months?" And I pressure him until he says yes, and that helps me a little bit.
Rich friends are great. I love that. Hey,
He's
I
never had
also,
to pay my mortgage, but I think some of
yeah,
it is
but
just like the potent fear. If you really look it in the face and say, "Well, what could I do?" There's so many things that you could do. It's like it just really that de-risk thing is always kind of there.
totally. The safety net, like always knowing that there's like a level or two of a safety net is always kind of nice. Um, I also, yeah, I mean, Emily again just pointed out something like really great. Like layoffs happen all the time. Our friends who are, employed by corporate get laid off all the time. There are times when I feel like being an entrepreneur is actually more secure than working for a big organization, like especially in tech these days. So more and more. All right. Do we have? I think we have time for like another question, another comment. If anybody's got one. So.
I got one story that I've just seen in my own life from afar that has astounded me. About 3 years ago, my wife started a business. She's a home stager and interior designer, and she's just the exact same thing. She hates promoting herself, hates talking about herself, very introverted, doesn't like to put herself out there. And I definitely thought like, oh, this going to be a problem. You're going to have to pitch yourself a lot, but um, the work has just stood for itself. Like she just got up there, started working, and I would say things like, you should get on Instagram and share these pictures and share this. And she would when she had time, but she eventually, through networking and just existing friends, she got so busy, and then she's really dedicated to what she was doing. 3 years down the line, she's swamped at all times and has literally, I don't think, ever promoted herself. She went on a podcast once, was terrified the shit out of her, and that's about it. So that's that's an example of I've seen just with my own two eyes of like sometimes just more what you do than what you say get you further.
Thanks, Jacob. I appreciate that.
Super speed thing. My band wasn't Aimee Romero, it was Marrow and the Broken Bones, because then I could be like, this band is cool. And I genuinely thought the band, apart from me, was cool. And it made it easy. Love and Science is not Aimee Romero consultant. And I think my team is amazing. It makes it easy for me to talk about them. But the other thing that works even before I had, band, team, whatever, is like the work matters so much to me. And it's so easy to talk about where you want somebody to go, how you want to see their trajectory, that can take away all of the like agony of being like, hey, I'm really pretty good at this. It's like talking about the problem. And I mean, everybody's got a different like way of selling, but talking about the problem, talking about like what the solution is, like that's super helpful. And something we stand by also is like do stuff for free. When you do stuff for free, people will talk about it. You do a good job, people will talk about it, and it kind of gets into that expansion mode that Jacob's talking about.
Thanks, Amy. I'll end with this. The thing that I'm also super allergic to salespeople in general. Like I don't like being sold to, so therefore I'm terrified of being like in any way associated with that kind of behavior. Somebody once told me that if I do something that is actually valuable for other human beings, I'm denying them the opportunity of impact and getting better if I don't open my mouth. And that really struck home. It's almost like I'm holding the antidote for somebody who's just been bitten by a snake and I'm not saying anything about it. And I don't know, maybe that's taking myself a little too seriously. It's fairly dramatic, but at the same time, it's got a good point to it. So if I feel like I'm doing really good work and I'm not just trying to make a buck, then I should say that thing out loud. So all right, guys, we're right at the end of our time here. I just wanted to like take a moment to talk a little bit, like really quickly about this thing that we have. So we built this online course. Jacob and I made it over a year ago. It's called Starting Block. It's for brand new, like aspiring entrepreneurs or early stage entrepreneurs. It is like a super practical, no fluff online course. You could literally watch the whole thing in like 45 minutes. But we assign homework for each module. And so there's like work to be done if you want to do it. It's lots of personal stories, both of like success and failures. And I think we talk a lot about our mindsets as well. And so, anyway, we're offering that for like 50% off. So it's like $49. I don't know, whatever half of 99 is, it's that. So if you're interested, if you know anybody that's interested, you should ask them to buy it. And then the other thing that is maybe even cooler is that we're prototyping a 60-day cohort for new entrepreneurs, for anybody that's launching a product or a service or a business. We're doing a completely free 60-day cohort. All of us experienced entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, we're doing weekly calls, and then in addition to like some asynchronous support for 60 days. And that is to help people get unstuck, to get somebody launched out into the world, sharing war stories, and but also like tips and tricks. There's an awful lot of knowledge in this group. We're also big fans of this idea of like building with other people, right? Like doing it with a group, doing it with a community, and but not a giant community, not like 300 people, but like 7 people or something like that. We think that there's a lot of value in that. So if that sounds interesting to you, or you know somebody that could really benefit from being in a cohort, tell them to buy Starting Block, and then they can join us for free for 60 days. Team, have I missed anything? I'm sure I have missed something, but did I miss anything?
Just build like what Starting Block is, like that course. It just kind of covers a lot of the basics and personal story. When I launched my business, I didn't know a lot of things that came back later to hit me, including like not having a business license for 10 years or something and having to do some weird negotiations with the state. So like just getting some of that dumb stuff that takes up an enormous amount of your mental space, or can hurt you later on, like just getting it out of the way. I wish I'd had it laid out like this. Like this is what I was always asking people for, is like, I just want like a workbook that has like the set of things that I need to do that are not exciting. Not all of them are exciting. A lot of the stuff is like cool and like exciting, but it also covers the just junky stuff that like stops you. Those obstacles are like, well, but I actually don't know what an LLC is. Like it'll just wipe them out.
I just add on and say, when I think everyone involved, from Parker to myself, Love and Science, like we all kind of come from this sort of punk rock background, and entrepreneurship has made a huge impact on the amount of freedom we've been able to have in our lives. And so when we built this thing, it was like, how can we teach people how to go from 0 to 1? And then after we made it and we were promoting it, it was like, how can we create a community of people who are also, their endeavors are allowing them to live the lives they want? How can we share in that, to lift each other up and just provide a community to travel along with?
Yeah. Well said, you guys. All right, gang, we're 3 minutes over. I knew that we were going to blow our time by a little bit. That's all right. If anybody wants to stick around and chat a little bit more, feel free. Like, we're just going to hang for a minute. If not, thank you so much for joining us.